Okay, we're going to talk a lot now about tax.
Oh, great.
So you talked a lot about tax this week. But it's been an up and down week for you. Your poll numbers have been really good. But you've also struggled to stack up your tax plan. There have been big questions from a lot of places about your foreign buyer tax. So are there any conditions that would make you rethink your tax cut policy?
No, absolutely not. By virtue of the way that we said we would design it a long time ago, we said always that we would make sure we have a fully self-funded tax plan. And I just put it into a little bit of perspective.
Well, we can put it into context in a second, but it feels like you're entrenched here in this position. You are out there dying every day in a ditch over this tax plan when there are questions over the legitimacy of the foreign buyer tax. Why won't you just release the numbers and show Kiwis the money?
Well, we've released 32 pages of our approach and our costings. We've released a legal report summarising with the legal view, and we've also released Castalia's independent economic review of our numbers. So, what I'd just say to you is, the foreign buyer tax is a piece of actually how we fund our tax relief. We've done this on a very conservative, very prudent basis on all aspects of it, and importantly, we're delivering tax relief to working New Zealanders. That's what they care about.
This is the 32-page document that you're talking about, isn't it? This, Christopher, this is a brochure. It's full of pictures of you.
I think that's unfair. There's quite a lot of tables in the back there.
Well, there's also some pictures of you having a cup of tea. There's pictures of you cuddling a baby. This is not a financial document, a big financial disclosure document. This is a brochure.
No, that's a policy document that lays out in detail in appendices actually some of our costings and how we're approaching it. We've been very transparent about it. And we actually, I think I'm very proud of that because...
It's marketing, it's not modelling. This is marketing, Christopher.
No, it's not. It's called a policy document. That's what we do in politics. We prepare policy so that actually New Zealanders can jump online, see it and see how well they're going to do.
But you're saying that this is, you've put it a 32-page report which goes through all of the financial details. You could not present this in any other environment except for politics and have people take you seriously. You couldn't list on the NZX with this. They wouldn't allow you.
I just put it to you. I think it's a very comprehensive policy document.
But it's not a financial document.
No, but I would challenge you to actually say the same thing if you want to investigate how the government's proposing to take GST off fruit and vegetables, or how it's proposing to increase, fuel tax and excise tax.
Let's take a look here at your own example with the foreign buyer tax. This is Rachel. She is a tech entrepreneur. Now, she is from San Francisco. She's successfully applied for an entrepreneur work visa so she can start a business in New Zealand. She wants to buy a $3 million apartment in Auckland to live in, but she's not a resident, so she can't buy a home. Under your plan, you say that she will pay 15% of foreign buyer tax and she'll be able to buy an apartment. How many Rachels do you need to make your foreign buyer tax work?
Well, let's go through it, right? So,
how many Rachels do you need?
So let me step you through it. So before the foreign buyer ban was in place, there was 4,000 houses that were sold to foreigners in New Zealand. What we're saying is we think it will be less than half, about 1,700 houses is what our plan's about. What we're saying is, look, we actually want someone like her to actually come to New Zealand and actually invest in New Zealand, partner with New Zealand firms, help them get better, help them to expand and grow.
So how many Rachels do you need?
Well, as we said, we've planned on selling 1,600 to 1,700 houses in our assumptions.
So you need 16 to 1,700 Rachels.
Yeah.
So how many Rachels entered the country under that visa this year?
Again, what I'd say to you is...
I can tell you, it's 12.
Well, what I'd say to you is there's other visas and other opportunities for foreigners to come to New Zealand.
But this is what you're putting in your document that you're selling to New Zealanders.
Yes, but what you're saying is, I'm hearing two messages from everybody over the course of this week. On the one hand, we actually don't have enough people coming to buy these houses, therefore our plan isn't fully funded. On the other hand, we're incredibly worried that actually all these people are going to show up and actually drive property prices up. And I'll just say to you...
Well, both scenarios are possible.
Well, I think we've been very sensible about it. But all we're saying is, look, if you want to come to New Zealand as a foreigner, a wealthy foreigner, we're going to make sure you buy a luxury home and you're going to pay 15% tax. And most importantly, that's going to go to lower middle income New Zealanders. So
let's talk about your numbers just a little bit more here. You've based them on numbers back in 2018, sales in 2018 of 4,000 homes, but you don't know how many of those were over $2 million, how many of those sales were over $2 million, do you?
Well, clearly the market has moved since 2018 because unfortunately in this government they've failed so badly on housing. House prices are up over $230,000, right?
You don't know how many were over $2 million.
No, but what I can say to you is there's 4,000 houses sold to foreigners.
Yes. Yes.
We've been very conservative, taking less than half of them into our assumption, into our model. We're also acknowledging there's a huge amount of pent-up demand by virtue of the Brightline test having been there, and also the ban being in place.
You need 40% of those 4,000 buyers, excluding Australians and Singaporeans, to buy houses over $2 million.
And there's 100,000 homes here in New Zealand.
No, there was 4,000 sold.
No, but that's to all foreigners before the ban.
Yes.
And just remember today,
and we don't know
house
how many
prices have moved on. Separately, we also now have 100,000 homes worth over $2 million in New Zealand. And we've had a ban in place. We've actually had a Brightline test in place. Those things have been impediments to demand. And so I'm very confident that we will be able to raise $740 million from the foreign buyers. And we're going to give it to lower middle income New Zealanders.
Confidence is not competence, Christopher. And that is what looks to be lacking here.
I disagree.
So you think confidence is competence?
No, I'm confident and competent. I understand the economy, I understand numbers, and I understand how it works.
Well,
the reality is there will be a range of economists that have a different range of opinions.
Well,
We've had a range of economists in New Zealand, just for example, that didn't actually forecast that we'd be in recession.
Christopher, there are not a range of opinions on this. There are tax experts, economists, property experts who all say that these numbers are bogus, and there's you and Castalia who say they're not.
And so within the economists...
That is not a range of opinions, that is everyone else and you.
Well, what I'd say to you is we have had the decency of going off and actually checking our numbers with an independent group of economists, and they have come back and validated those numbers.
No,
I just put it to you,
group
GST of fruit and vegetables, there's not a single economist that would support that.
We're talking about your policy here, and the economists say that you're dreaming. The best estimate is that National's foreign buyer tax would raise $210 million per year, compared to your estimate of $740 million. This is the modelling that's been done independently by economists in the public interest, because you won't release your numbers.
Well, I think we've been incredibly clear. What we've done is we've released a 32-page document that's got the approach and costings in it. Go through the detail of the appendices that are there.
I've been through the detail of the appendices. This is not a financial document, it's marketing.
Yeah, we've also released independent economists' view of our numbers that have been audited. They find them plausible. We've been conservative. We've actually worked that through really closely and carefully. And we've also released legal advice, because initially the first issues were, this won't work with foreign treaty FTAs, this won't work with tax treaties, it's not possible to reinstate it.
So why, they have released their model, why won't you just show New Zealanders the money?
I don't think there's any value in releasing spreadsheets.
Why not be clear with people and release your spreadsheets?
Because I'm very confident we've had independent validation, and equally we've released that information.
But this is important. This is about integrity. This is about competence. This is about humility. This is about asking New Zealanders to give you billions of dollars to spend on your tax cut package and to trust your numbers.
And I think
why won't you just front up and show them the money?
And New Zealanders know that they can trust a national government to manage the economy well.
Why do they know
good economic management, and that's what they're going to get from us.
But why do they know that? Because you're giving them 32 pages of marketing and flimsy examples.
No, we're giving them. We have had a fully costed tax plan. Remember, there is savings that we're generating out of the public service. There is new revenue that we're raising. And the sum of all of that is going to lower middle income New Zealanders.
You're just not going to show New Zealanders your numbers. You're going to bluster and you're going to bully your way through this, and that is your strategy.
I just want to give you some proportionality. This is a government that spends $137 billion in government spending.
We are talking about you here, Christopher, and your policies, because you want to be Prime Minister.
We have given you very good clarity around the approach, around the costings. We've given you independent economic review of our numbers.
But not the numbers.
We've also given independent legal tax advice, legal advice as well.
Okay, let's set aside the many questions over your foreign buyer tax and say you're right for a moment. What impact will reducing the Brightline test, interest deductibility, and pouring 6,800 foreign buyers into the housing market have on residential prices?
Well, what I'd say to you, the real issue that drives residential prices is a lack of supply.
I'm asking you what effect your policies will have.
I don't think that'll have any particular effect on pricing.
Do you know?
I'd say to you, let me explain why.
Because your finance minister doesn't know.
No, but let me explain to you why. Because essentially you've got to understand the housing market in New Zealand, right?
People do understand the housing market, but I'm asking what impact your policies will have on it.
Yeah, so let me explain that to you. What we're saying is we have major problems in the home ownership part of our market, right? We don't have enough supply of houses. We've got good policies about housing for growth, about how we unlock that. We have a major lack of supply in our rental property market as well. And we have a major lack of supply in social housing and state housing. So lack of supply is the single biggest determinant that will determine what happens with house prices going forward in New Zealand.
You did say something yesterday that was interesting. You said when Gucci takes their prices up, I don't see a lot of prices going up at the warehouse. Can you explain that?
What I mean by that is that we have designed a foreign buyer tax policy that actually puts a threshold in place, which is a $2 million plus purchase is what
Is that
they
a
need to buy.
Gucci house?
Well, it's a more expensive house, right?
Is
You've
it?
got an
Because
average...
there are 3-bedroom homes worth $2 million.
Sure, but the average house price across New Zealand is $894,000 at the moment, right?
What's the average here in Auckland?
It'll be slightly higher than that. But the average house price across New Zealand is $894,000. We've designed it such that there is a threshold in place so that actually foreign buyers are not competing with New Zealanders, right?
So you're saying that $2 million is Gucci?
What I'm saying to you is I was trying to illustrate very clearly there's a difference between an $895,000 house, which is the average house price in New Zealand, versus putting a threshold in place of $2 million or more. And you've just seen it in the last couple of weeks, for example. There's been a new record house price set in Queenstown of $40 million.
How many of those do you have to sell?
Well, I mean, that's the reality is you'll find a lot of these buyers will want to buy $10, $15, $20 million homes.
How many
here
of
in New
those
Zealand.
do you have to sell?
Well, there will be more of them because we've actually got the Bright Line test coming back. We've also got a foreign buyer ban being released and not in place, and that will actually drive some more demand. $2
million homes are aspirational homes for many Kiwis. Here in Auckland, it can be a 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert. So you are pouring new buyers into a slice of the market.
I'm now
that
pouring
could be,
buyers into the market when I previously wasn't raising enough money from my program.
Let's say that you're right, and
yes.
The Kiwis can decide whether they think you're right or not. But a $2 million house here in Auckland, that's a 3-bedroom house in Mount Albert. And families, these are aspirational homes for Kiwis, and you want to pour foreign buyers into that part of the market. And what you're trying to tell me is that it's not going to push up prices or price out Kiwis.
We have 100,000 homes in New Zealand worth more than $2 million. We're talking about
example
selling
in Mount Albert.
1,600 homes is what we're talking about to make our plan work.
But you're pouring it into a part of the market that is aspirational and important to Kiwi families.
And what's important to Kiwi families, they also get tax relief because they're doing it incredibly tough with rising mortgage rates, high levels of expenditure.
But you could be robbing from Peter to pay Paul here because you're going to give them $25 a week in tax relief and price them out of the housing market.
No, I'm actually taking it from Pedro to pay Paul because I'm taking it from foreign buyers. And I'm saying if you want to purchase a house here in New Zealand, you will pay a 15% tax. And that money is going straight to hardworking Kiwis who deserve a tax break.
I'm saying that you might be giving Kiwi families $25 a week, but you're taking away their ability to move into those homes at the $2 million mark, which here in Auckland is a family home.
Yeah, and I think when you've got 100,000 houses across the whole of this country worth more than $2 million, and we're talking about selling 1,600 of them potentially to foreigners, actually
every
that's quite digestible.
For 4 years.
Yeah.
So that is many more than 1,600. And the Treasury says that it does exactly that it pushes up residential prices, allowing foreigners into the luxury part of the market, drags prices up and it prices Kiwis out. Strong activity at the top end of the market displaces New Zealanders from being able to purchase these homes.
And I don't think the Treasury advice factored in that we would put in a threshold around a foreign buyer ban. Previously there was no threshold, remember?
No, it did actually, because it was saying why not just open up that luxury part of the market. So it did factor that in.
Yeah, and so from our point of view, as I said to you, I don't know how to explain it anymore to you, which is...
Well, I don't feel like I'm any further ahead.
No, well, I'm just trying to explain to you, there's 100,000 homes above $2 million. Our plan's very conservative. We expect to sell 1,600 to 1,700 a year to foreigners for the great privilege of doing that, whether they buy a $10, $15, $20 million house, whatever it may be.
$2 million house.
They will end up, actually, our average price was $2.9 million, was what we built the numbers on. They will actually pay a 15% tax, and that's going to lower middle income workers. I think that's a fantastic plan. And I appreciate if you're in the Labor Party, you're really disappointed because actually...
We're not in the Labor Party.
But
You're talking to voters right now.
And voters love it.
And do they?
Because, they appreciate the fact we're going to give them tax relief and that we're actually going to find a way to be able to fund it completely in a standalone tax plan. I think that's what's great about the idea.
That remains to be seen, actually, whether you will be able to fund it completely. And if you can't fund it completely, where does that money come from? Are you going to borrow or are you going to cut?
Well, we're not going to do what this government has been doing, which is borrowing and taking it out of future operating spending. We're going to make it self-funding, as I've said to you.
But if it's not, if it falls short by the $2 billion that the economists think it will, if your numbers are a bit funky, where does the money come from?
Well, what I've said to you is every aspect of our tax plan has been checked, and there are revenue raises in other areas. There are also prioritised savings in government spending. And every single aspect of that has been done conservatively, prudently,
but these are just words.
And responsibly.
These are just words without actual evidence, facts to back it up. These are just words. This is marketing. This is hubris until you get elected.
I disagree. We've actually, I've explained to you that we've actually gone off and engaged somebody to actually interrogate our numbers, challenge our numbers.
But why aren't you worried then that everybody else says this is not going to work? They looked at Toronto. In Toronto, which has the same 15% tax and a greater population than New Zealand, they came up with $250 million in this foreign buyer revenue.
Yes, well, we see these schemes working all around the world.
But that's not
New
750 million.
About what's happening across Australia.
Did you look at Toronto?
We've looked at a number of markets across the world, and we see these things working incredibly well.
So
it's one part of our plan. I think I appreciate there's different views. I don't know how to explain to you any clearer about our assumptions about how we've actually built.
You could release the numbers. That would make it clearer.
I basically have told you how we're doing it. I'm not going to release this Excel spreadsheet.
Why not?
Well, there's no point, because what I'm saying to you is I've given you an approach, I've given you costings, I've given you an independent review from a bunch of economists, I've given you independent tax advice. Mm-hmm. Initially, this program came under attack as it's inconsistent with our FTA agreements. No, it's not. It came under attack because it was inconsistent with our tax agreements.
Well, you don't know that yet.
Well, no, it's not, because we've had experts come out and comment about that. And now we can reinstate or take the ban away, and we're doing it in a responsible way, putting the threshold in place, charging wealthy foreigners 15% tax for the privilege of buying a house in New Zealand.
But this is just your marketing brochure.
No, it's not. It's actually just explaining. No, I resent that, because I think you've got to be really clear. We have actually gone through and laid up our approach and been very open about how we're going to fund it.
No, Christopher, you haven't been open.
The case on
you haven't been open and transparent about this. I want to just circle back to this international example again, because I come back to Toronto. As I said, a city 20% larger. You live there, you would know. Than New Zealand in population. It has a 15% tax on foreign buyers on all properties, and it only raised $250 million last year. That is well short of what you are anticipating.
And I can look at examples in Vancouver, I can look at examples in Australia and other places, and that's why I'm saying to you...
But will you release those numbers, what your evidence is?
Well, we're very comfortable with our numbers. I don't know how to explain it to you anymore.
Well, they don't add up for a lot of people. They don't add up. That's why we're talking about it 15 days later.
I think what's exciting about it is that actually we're the only party giving working people a tax break in New Zealand. So
$2 to $25 a week on average for for New Zealand workers. This is a big scheme, and these are big numbers, and there seem to be big holes in them for $2 to $25 a week for households in New Zealand.
An average household income family in New Zealand would get $250 a fortnight if they had young kids in our plan.
Yeah, there are 130,000 of those. So the rest of New Zealanders who are workers without kids 3 or 4 years old, that is the great majority of New Zealanders.
Yep, and so an average household income would get $100 a fortnight. A median
$25 each a week.
Yep.
You're just bumping up these numbers.
Median income worker every fortnight would get $50 a fortnight.
$25 a week.
Yep, and isn't it great? It actually is something that is helping them, because what's the alternative?
The alternative is...
You give it to the government, who've increased government spending by 80%, wasted it, and I trust New Zealanders to spend it and save it better than the government.
It's a family-sized block of cheese and some change.
I would say to you, for someone out there on the median income in New Zealand, getting a single median income earner getting $50 extra every fortnight in their pay pocket to spend and save as they see fit is a really good thing. I wouldn't belittle that.
I'm not belittling it. I'm saying it's at the margins in this cost of living environment, in this economic environment.
It's a way in which we can get relief to New Zealanders in the cleanest, best way that goes straight to their back pocket.
You will work with ACT But you haven't told New Zealanders whether or not you will work with Winston Peters. He's in if you need him, isn't he?
No, I haven't thought about Winston Peters and New Zealand First. They haven't been in Parliament and they haven't been consistently above thresholds.
Well, they're above the threshold now.
What I'm focused on is making sure that New Zealanders understand there's an awful lot to stake at this election. And I don't want any New Zealander watching this show to think that they are helping or voting for any other party other than the National Party.
So will you work with him?
Again, I haven't given him any thought.
You
he's
must
not
have.
above Parliament. He's not consistently above thresholds. What I'm focused on is maximising the National Party vote.
But do you
on
see
the other
how
side, we'll make it work.
So you will work with him if you need to on the other side?
I will make a coalition work.
I just heard that you will work with Winston Peters on the other side if you need to.
That's not what I said. What I've said to you is that I would work with a coalition partner, and it's most likely to be National Act. That's what the polls are saying.
But you also
over the
would
last
work
few
with him.
months. And I'm going to make sure I do everything in my power on this side of the election as the leader of the National Party to get people to understand I do not want you giving your vote to any other party other than the National Party.
Why won't you just answer the question?
On the other side of the election, the New Zealand people are never wrong. Whatever they decide with their respect to their votes and who they dish up on election night is up to them. And then I have a responsibility in that system to go form a government. I am confident I can form a government that will be very stable, very aligned and get things done for the New Zealand people.
With Winston Peters?
Disagree. Yeah.